Hey everybody! Welcome back to the High Gas Fee Studio. Do you know what a quilt is? It's kind of like a blanket. It's super cuddly. But the cool thing about a quilt is, unlike a blanket that's all one piece of material or cloth, a quilt is made up of a bunch of small pieces of fabric or cloth all sewn together. If I was going to make a quilt, I would probably start off with some squares like this. Now, I'm not a very good seamstress, but I would sew them together in a pattern, and it might come out looking something like this, or this. And if I got really good at sewing, I might even try to put some triangles together. But I just have to show you something that I found this week. You're not going to believe your eyes. It's going to blow your mind. And have I got a story for you. I was on my computer and I was researching quilts. So I typed in the search engine the word quilt, and a lot of different patterns came up, but also these very colorful paintings. I was wondering why colorful paintings would show up under a quilt search. And then I couldn't believe my eyes. Those colorful paintings weren't paintings at all. They were quilts. Bisa Butler quilts. I had never heard of a Bisa Butler quilt. What's a Bisa Butler quilt? And then I realized it's not a Bisa Butler quilt. The artist of the quilts is named Bisa Butler. Bisa was born in 1973 in Orange, New Jersey. Her mother was from New Orleans, that's in Louisiana, and her father was from Ghana, that's in Africa. Both were teachers, so education was very important in their family. Bisa tells a story about when she was a little girl. One of her favorite things to do was to sit with her grandmother, open up a photo album, and look at the pictures with her. She'd point to different pictures and ask her grandmother, "Who's that person? Are we related?" Sometimes her grandmother would tell her the story behind the photograph. There were some times that her grandmother couldn't remember who the picture was of. Bisa didn't mind that at all. She enjoyed making up a story in her imagination that described the person in the photograph. Another memory Bisa has is of her mother and her grandmother sewing. They were always encouraging Bisa and her older sister to sew clothes for their dolls. Bisa loved art, and so she decided to go to Howard University and study painting. While she was there, she learned a lot, and she was a very talented artist, but she felt like her art wasn't anything special. It seemed to look like everyone else's art. As she was about to finish her studies, she found out that she was going to have a baby. She was so excited about the coming of a new baby, but being pregnant made her sick. Food made her feel bad, and smells made her feel bad, especially the smell of paint and paint thinner. Oh, she wasn't sure she'd be able to finish her last project for school. She had to come up with another solution. She just couldn't stand the smell of paint. And so she decided to maybe add some fabric, just glue it on to the canvas instead of painting on the canvas. Maybe that would be okay for her last project. When the professor saw what she had created, gluing on different little pieces of fabric, he thought it was fabulous. He thought it was wonderful, and Bisa was very happy that that project was over. Bisa got some bad news. Her grandmother was dying. It made Bisa very, very sad. She wanted to give something to her grandmother. She had spent so much time with her and loved her so much. She thought, maybe I could make something for her. Maybe with all this fabric that I have lying around, I could make her a quilt. She began to think about it. She had a photograph of her grandmother and grandfather. Could she possibly do a portrait out of cloth? She got to work. She knew that it had to be special. She knew she wanted to use a lot of purple. You see, her grandmother's name was Violet, and violet is a very pretty shade of purple. She began to assemble all the pieces. She sewed it together and she presented it to her grandmother. She was so proud of her new quilt, but not as proud as her grandmother was. Her grandmother loved it, and it was a beautiful gift to give someone that meant so much to Bisa. Bisa loved making that quilt almost as much as she loved giving it to her grandmother, and it didn't make her sick. She began to make more quilts. Now, this is where your mind is going to be blown. As you know, she loved old photographs, like the ones that she and her grandmother used to look at. She would find old photographs of people that she didn't know, and she would begin to put together an imaginative story in her head about the photograph. Sometimes she would even be sitting on the bus and she'd look across from her and she would see a person, someone that she didn't know, and she'd really look at them. She thought they were beautiful. Nobody may have known what their life was about, what their life story was, but that's the great thing about imagination. She could make it up in her own head. She would wonder what their story was, and then she would pick out fabrics that would help bring that story to life. And then she'd begin to sew. Here is a photo she found of a man. She doesn't know him, so she can just make up a story about him. He is sitting and in deep thought. Perhaps he's a world traveler. So she began to pick fabrics that would tell his story. Bright colors, crazy fun prints. She found some material with airplanes on it and made his pants from that fabric. He is clean and put together. She even showed the bottom of his shoes. They are also clean. He is his own person, with his own ideas, his own thoughts, his own experiences. He is his own man. So she named this piece, I Am Not Your Negro. Check this one out. This is a photo that Bisa found and just had to make a quilt from it. This is what she created. It's called South Side Sunday Morning. These young men are dressed up, but all of Bisa Butler's portraits seem to be dressed up. Look closely because they are all looking at you. What do their faces tell you? Are they calm? Do they seem frustrated, inquisitive, maybe bored or angry? Do they seem strong, confident? Again, Bisa shows the underside of shoes, clean and polished. I get so wrapped up in the eyes and the expressions that sometimes I forget that this is all made from different pieces of fabric. Here's another quilt. Do you think Bisa's quilt on the right looks like the photo on the left? The colors are different, but the expression is just the same. Again, this young girl is looking right at you. This is one of my favorites. It's called the Safety Patrol. The boy in the middle has the assignment, probably because he's older and a good leader, to make sure the other students are safe. He has his arms stretched out to protect. Again, all of the students are looking right at us. What do their faces say to you? Bisa quilted this so to say that all Black children need to be valued and safely guarded and protected. The people in her quilts are very important to Bisa, but the fabrics she used are also very important. She carefully chooses fabrics from all around the world, especially Africa, where her dad was from. She chooses fabrics that have special meaning, like fabrics that used to belong to her family or to someone special. She chooses colors that are vibrant and bright with lots and lots of patterns, just like her professors, who called themselves the Afro-Cobras, used to instruct her to do. They would say, "Think of Kool-Aid colors, Bisa." She carefully sews these fabulous fabrics together, putting stitches in just the right places, not only to hold the fabric down, but to add details in such a way that not only are we delighted with the patterns and colors, but we're drawn into the eyes of the people. Just as she did as a young girl, we can dream up their stories. Bisa said that she wants her artwork to speak for her and to speak for her people, African Americans. She wants her artwork to tell the truth about who they are, artwork to tell the truth about who humanity is, that we are all valuable. One quote that I love from Bisa Butler is this: "Humble beginnings or simple ingredients can make masterpieces." I find Bisa Butler's quilts fabulous. I just can't quit looking at them. I hope one day to be able to see one in person. She has quilts all around the United States. You can find them at Walt Disney World's Epcot Center, at the Smithsonian Museum of American History, the Claire Oliver Gallery, the Cantona Museum of Art, and the Art Institute in Chicago. You can find her quilts all over the country because they're always on a traveling exhibit. Now, I've been looking at some videos on how Bisa Butler puts her quilts together. And so, I want to ask you to continue to join me on this YouTube channel because we're going to try to do some artwork, some types of quilting in the style of Bisa Butler, and we'll do it together. And I want to remind you to stay safe and stay healthy.